Hey everybody, Chief Meteorologist Brad Penovich here. I was going to do most of this Facebook Live on Isaias, but we've got some big storms that have flared up coming out of Tennessee. This little area along Interstate 40 has been clobbered tonight. Severe thunderstorm warning continues for Alexander, Caldwell, and Iredell counties till 10 p.m. Also, another warning for Catawba and Iredell County till 10 p.m. So let's focus in on the radar first, and we'll do the severe weather part first, then we'll start talking about Isaias. You could see the strong storms coming through the Newton, Hickory, Claremont area. Got reports, Joey just told me we got reports of power outages in the Newton area. That extends up towards Taylorsville, Little River, towards Love Valley. This is heading towards Statesville. And again, lots of cloud to ground lightning. I could see the spectacular lightning all the way down here in Charlotte. It looks like it's much closer than it actually is. So it's pretty spectacular to see from distance. No more lightning than we normally see with an afternoon storm. The thing to remember is at night, you just tend to see the lightning a lot better. Some of the wind speeds in here are approaching, I would say, 50 to 60 miles per hour. At one point, I had a 55-mile-an-hour gust just southeast of Newton, and that's probably a little generous. It might be, or actually, I'm a little conservative. I actually think it might be a little bit higher than that. So we're probably getting some trees and power lines coming down. That's why we have the power outage. But again, this is moving off to the north and east pretty quickly. A couple more storms developing around Salisbury, but for everybody here in the Charlotte area and the WCNC viewing area, pretty strong storms moving through parts of the foothills right now. The potential for damaging winds and a lot of cloud or ground lightning. The good news is they're moving, so they shouldn't stick over you too long. But as I widen the view, we do have some rain back to the west, and it looks like another cluster developing down here in northeast Georgia. That might be something we'll have to watch for the Charlotte area later because we had some really intense heat today. In fact, temperatures today were in the mid 90s, so there's tons of fuel left over. In fact, if I look at the temperatures right now, I'll throw those up real quickly. Here we are, what time is it? 9:30, and it's still in the mid and upper 80s in a lot of locations. So there's still fuel for these storms to feed off of even here late at night. So let me do one more little quick tour of those, and then we'll start talking about our hurricane. So Taylorsville, big time, the thunder and lightning, damaging winds heading towards the east. You can see the arrows I've got basically off into areas of Iredell County, heading towards Olin, Eagles Mill, Turner Springs, Statesville, about on top of you, Troutman and the northern end of Lake Norman. Mooresville, this will clip the northern part of town. And again, very strong winds associated with this whole area. So I'll come back to this maybe if something changes here, but let's go down into the tropics and start talking about our hurricane. So here is our hurricane, Isaias. The center is actually this blob that you see right in the middle of your screen. Hurricane hunters are out there currently. They have just found a closed eye wall, even though it's not showing up on the satellite imagery right now. They're detecting it on radar and did find it showing up there. So it is gaining a little bit of strength. In fact, they found that the pressure was down to about 988 millibars. For those not familiar with millibars, the lower the pressure, the stronger the storm is. That means it's getting deeper and stronger. In fact, I would suspect that we're probably going to see this maybe at 11 o'clock be up to maybe 85 miles per hour, and that was in the forecast right in this area. Speaking of the forecast, let's do the latest track based on the 5 p.m. advisory. It says 8 p.m. because at 8 p.m. they give you an updated position, but they don't update the track. So here's a look at the track through the Bahamas. Notice the winds. I think it could be 85 by tonight, so we might upgrade that. And then as it moves near the Florida coast, this is the big question tonight. How close to the coast are we going to get here? Are we going to be inland, which is a possibility? Are we going to be offshore or right on the coast? If it's over here, it's going to be stronger. So the stronger the storm gets, the more likely it is to be on the east side of the cone. The weaker it is, the farther west it'll go, and kind of the in-between is right there on the coast. But there's a pretty good chance this is going to either come close or touch the southeast coast of Florida, maybe as far south as West Palm, but maybe all the way up to Melbourne, the Cape, maybe even Daytona Beach. And then from there, it starts to recurve to the northeast. And notice it weakens. So look at the wind speeds here, back down to 70 miles per hour. That's for a couple of reasons here. One, it's going to be interacting with land, and there's also going to be strong southwesterly winds, which are going to start producing some wind shear. So the combination of the two should weaken it, and then it's going to move northeast and probably make a more direct impact somewhere here in the Carolinas. And let me stop it right here. Let me go back one more. I'm gonna play it all the way out actually. So there we go. You could see some kind of landfall between Charleston and the Outer Banks. And again, there's still a chance it could stay offshore on this line. It could move further to the west, though I think both of these are probably less likely. I do think it's going to be somewhere in here. I think that's kind of the way the trend and the guidance has been. And again, the big question mark is how strong is it? Right now, as a tropical storm, you know, I don't downplay these things. I hate to downplay even a tropical storm, and I hate when we often say that it's only a tropical storm. But because of how fast it's moving, how small the storm is, and the fact that it's 70 miles an hour, it's probably not the most powerful, impactful storm we're ever going to see here in the Carolinas. But it's our first one of the season, and we're dealing with COVID-19, so you pay a little bit more attention to it. But this certainly is not anything out of the ordinary for this time of year. It's actually pretty normal to see a storm like this impact the Southeast. So the big question will be, does it get any stronger? And then we'll have something more to worry about. So here's the latest alerts. You could see the hurricane warning up for the part of Florida. We expect hurricane conditions. And then you see tropical storm warning south to Miami. And then new tropical storm watches up to Jacksonville. So the next thing we're probably going to see here is tropical storm watches issued for parts of South Carolina, and probably sometime tomorrow, maybe late, even maybe Sunday morning, tropical storm watches, and maybe warnings issued all the way up to North Carolina. Just to show you how the wind field looks, the wind field is pretty small. I was looking earlier, the hurricane force winds only extend out 25 to maybe 30 miles. So the red area is very tiny, and it's all on the east side. So the center is right there. South and west side, there's almost no wind. It's all up to the northeast. It's a lopsided system. And when you see it on the satellite, it looks like that as well. As this moves to the north and west, as long as the track stays offshore, the worst winds will stay offshore. But here's the problem. Saturday night, it gets really close to the east coast of Florida with maybe some hurricane force winds around West Palm, thus the hurricane warning. And then it weakens, the hurricane force winds go away, and it starts to push northeast. And then as it gets up towards the Carolinas, you're looking at more of a tropical storm with maybe some 58-mile-an-hour winds getting closer to the Charleston area. So again, remember with these winds, these are the maximum winds. Likely most of the winds are going to be less than that. The way I equate this is like the high temperature today was 94 degrees. It wasn't 94 the whole day. It was 94 degrees for like 5 minutes at 4 o'clock. Most of the day was in the upper 80s and low 90s. So with max winds and hurricanes, those winds are in a very small area, and for a very short period of time, the sustained winds for most of this area is going to be a little lower. So that's why I like looking at the 39 and 58 mile per hour wind fields, because it kind of is more representative of what you're going to see. But that's going to push a lot of water and eventually cause some issues. So let's look at, the potential impacts. And again, this is based on the current track. You can see we're expecting some, high impacts in Florida with winds of 50 to 70 miles per hour, rain 4 to 8 inches. That might be a little too high because of the speed, but storm surge 2 to 5 feet. As we get into the area in the medium threat, you're looking at storm surge of maybe 1 to 3, some power outages. But as you get up into the red area, and this is the area of greatest concern, is going to be just north of Charleston, maybe Georgetown, all the way up to maybe Hampton Roads, Norfolk, Virginia Beach area. 50 to 70 mile an hour winds, 4 to 8 inches, and storm surge of 2 to 5 feet. And honestly, the storm surge probably is going to end up being the biggest issue with this because of the amount of water it's pushing. Rainfall-wise, it's actually, compared to some of our recent storms, it's actually not too crazy. You can see the 3 to 6 inch amounts in here, and there's isolated. Most of this is in the 3 to 4 inch range, and a lot of this falls over a 7-day period. You can see some of the heavier amounts are going to be offshore, but eastern North Carolina certainly could see some of the heavier rainfall amounts. So let's break down the timing. We'll start down here. I love showing this graphic because I think it really gives people a good idea on the timing of the impacts, as well as what you're going to see. Now, I have to pick select towns. So if you don't see your city on here, take no offense to it. It's just that's where I had to drop them off. So if you're in and around these areas, this is for North Carolina. So you can see late Monday night, 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11, into early Tuesday, tropical storm force winds for a lot of the North Carolina beaches. Let me show you the South Carolina beaches, where we expect the winds to be a little stronger now because that'll be closer to when it was hurricane strength. And I do not know why it's taking forever to load. You can see there are a couple locations where we could see a very brief period of wind gust, not sustained, wind gust up to hurricane force. So North Myrtle, Myrtle Beach, Georgetown, maybe Folly Beach, and plus you're kind of more out east there, gives you a little more opportunity to be in that wind field. But notice the time frame. This is the crucial part. You're looking at, Monday, 9 p.m.-ish. Here's Tuesday, 9 p.m. So about this time on Monday, I would expect to see that kind of parameters there. And look how narrow these are too. You're only looking at a very short window. So these aren't going to last very long. This is a couple hours of intense winds and then it's gone. And those tropical storm force winds, just to show you the probabilities, I always like showing these wind swaths. You can see the probabilities of seeing tropical storm force winds generally in the 20 to 30% range along the coast. Inland, it drops off pretty quickly to single percentages. That's why in the Charlotte area, I know a lot of folks, keep asking me, are we going to see anything in Charlotte? We may not even know the thing is out there. We've got a trough swinging, and that will likely bring more rain for the Western Carolinas. But for the coast, you're talking about some pretty substantial winds possible out there. As far as hurricane force, and I know I put the hurricane force winds in here. Just got to figure out where I put them, because the hurricane force winds, I think, will tell you a little bit as well. Maybe I didn't put them in here. Huh. Well, I thought I did, but they're pretty much close to zero. Oh, here we go. I was staring right at them. So hurricane force winds, I'll actually stop it there and show you most of the hurricane force winds are confined to the area where we think we're going to see hurricane conditions, and that's in the Bahamas and maybe up to Florida. But as you get up into areas closer to the Carolinas, those probabilities drop off pretty quickly. Let me double check to make sure we have that time frame correctly, because sometimes the time isn't set up. Yep, that's the correct one. Okay. So you're looking at a time frame where, we're probably not going to see sustained hurricane force winds unless something dramatic happens. So let's go back to the radar, because I'm going to do a little analysis here, show you what's going on. If you look at the system, you can kind of see the shape that it's taking on. The circulation is right there, but it's got kind of this comma shape to it. So this comma shape is showing you that there's probably some wind shear in here and dry air eating up here. And the fact that all that cirrus cover is being pushed off to the north and east, and I'm going to bring this full screen so you can see me. But you see all that cirrus and all the clouds being pushed off. That's a little trick that sometimes when you look at the satellite, those are kind of like feeder bands that are showing you, or streamers that are showing you which way the flow is going. So when I see that plume of cirrus deck or high clouds going that way, that's the direction the storm's going to move. That's because those are being pulled by mid and upper level winds. So that gives you a little hint on where it's going. So the fact that we're seeing that is a good sign that this is starting to move almost more northwest than due northwest. But right now the track is pretty much like that. And then the churn, how sharp that churn is going to be crucial. We'll look at the water vapor loop just to show you there is still a lot of dry air to the west of it. That's also why you're not seeing that huge expanse of high-level clouds. The outflow is trying to go that way, but this is all dry air and that wind shear there. So the environment over here is not great, and here is not great. There's a small window pretty much where it is right now tonight over the Bahamas to up in here where the wind shear isn't horrible. It's small enough that it's insulated from some of the dry air, and the water temperatures are like in the upper 80s to near 90. So you've got really good conditions right now that this could possibly strengthen. So as we watch this thing tonight, sitting over the Bahamas, there's a chance it could go up to 85 or 90 miles per hour. The big question will be tomorrow as it gets closer to Florida, does the dry air and wind shear start having some influence on it, and does it start to weaken? If it does not, then Florida's got some issues. That's why in Florida, you're always playing chicken with these, it seems like, we think it's gonna churn, we think it's gonna weaken. You might have a Cat 1, a strong Cat 1, or a weak Cat 2, excuse me, coming right at you. So that's why in Florida, probably more concerning than up here in the Carolinas, because I'm fairly confident once we get up here to the Carolinas, we're going to see more of that wind shear. And you can see that trough. I'll widen this out. You may have heard me talk about this earlier. You got this trough. This is abnormal to see this type of troughiness this time of year. So for the Western Carolinas, as the hurricane, which is right here, goes up here and moves out this way, believe it or not, I don't know if this is going to show up well. I'm going to grab a pen here. Hopefully it's a white pen that'll show up better. Believe it or not, this is likely going to cause more rain than this, because this is moving through so quickly. This trough is going to sit over us, and there's going to be a lot of rain associated with that trough of low pressure. So in fact, some of the heaviest rains for us will likely be with the trough. So let's zoom in tonight. Let's see, we're starting to see maybe a hint of that eye showing itself. Maybe right in there. These bright cloud tops are showing up. I still think that the surface low is over here, but that little X where I'm drawing, that might be the beginning. Let me loop it a couple times. That might be the beginning of where we're seeing. Yeah, you know what? The more I look at that, this might be the eye wall showing up right there. So that's probably a pretty good indication of where the center is tonight. So if you're looking for significant impacts for the Carolinas right now, I don't think we're going to see a ton. I know there are some evacuations going on tonight for some of the barrier islands, and that's a little bit related more to COVID, honestly. They want to get non-residents out of the way, so there's room for social distancing in the shelters for residents and supplies for residents. South Carolina, there's no evacuations right now because we're expecting a strong tropical storm, but it doesn't mean there won't be flooding in low-lying areas. We might see a storm surge, a watch or warning issue for parts of the Carolinas as well. So we've got some time. The timing of all this, remember, is Monday night into Tuesday morning for the Carolinas. So you got time to prepare. Outer Banks, you've got all weekend to get ready. Start expecting conditions up in your area to probably start deteriorating, I would say, probably Monday, midday at the earliest. Our future cast right here kind of shows Sunday night into Monday morning. I'll stop this at 7 a.m. So let me go back to here. So you can see the storm is down to the south. In fact, I'm going to have to update where the icon is because it's moving pretty quick. So I'll stop this, Monday night. Let me play it. It still looks like the mess of a storm is down here somewhere. And look, it doesn't look very organized. I mean, that doesn't look like much of a hurricane. It looks like a tropical system, a tropical storm or depression. And probably not getting to the Outer Banks closer to Monday night into 9 p.m., 10, 11, overnight into Tuesday morning. It seems like these things always hit at night, but I think Monday night, Tuesday morning is probably a pretty legit look at the timing. Let me show you one more thing before we go. I want to show you the European model. Oh, you know what I need to show you? I know everyone likes to see the spaghetti just where they are. I'm going to make sure we have the latest runs here, but I do believe these are most of tonight's runs. Yeah, these are all tonight's runs. So I'm going to stop this at 7 a.m. on Tuesday. That's actually pretty tightly clustered models. There's a pretty consistent track right in here where the hurricane center is. There's a couple back in here, but the majority are right there. That's why I said, I don't think we'll see a huge shift east, and I don't think we'll see a huge shift west. It's only going to be probably in between here somewhere. So you're not looking at a ton of difference in the guide. So I wanted to show you the European model just to show you what the last run had. The storm a little bit weaker and farther west kind of plows it into Florida on Sunday. And if that happens, the thing would be much weaker. You can see the wind field basically falls apart. And then, it tries to reemerge over water, maybe tries to strengthen, but then it goes back into South Carolina. And, honestly, that's a pretty weak system right there by Tuesday morning, and then moving out of here pretty quickly. So, there's nothing tonight that I can show you that says, there's never any definites in weather, but I will tell you, there's far more evidence to show that this system is probably going to be a pretty weak system and probably be more so of a strong tropical storm, possibly weak hurricane. There's no indications of rapid intensification, at least in the long term. Short term, I would say in the Bahamas, you never know, next 24 hours. But as it gets closer to Florida up in here, there's no indication that it could spike up and be like some monster that we're not thinking about. All of the guidance has it Cat 1 or lower, or even tropical storm. So there's pretty consistent guidance. We had an upper air flight go off the east coast of North Carolina today. Let me go back to the satellite here. And I think some of that data got into tonight's model runs. I'm not 100% all of it did. Sometimes it takes another run or two. Let me show you. What I'm referring to is the hurricane hunters have been in there pretty consistently. So for the last 24 hours, we've had pretty much nonstop sampling of the storm here. But what was interesting today, the hurricane, the NOAA upper air mission flew out here and did some zigzags like this to sample the air mass ahead of it to see what the steering currents look like. And one thing I know they did find is that the ridge that's been sitting over the Atlantic has been a little bit stronger, and the trough back to the west has been a little bit slower, which has probably allowed this to get closer to Florida because of that. But the other thing, we haven't seen the wind shear, which is showing up now, do anything different than forecast. So the fact that we have dry air, wind shear, and interaction with land eventually probably tells you this isn't going to be the big one. But it's a good trial run because we're still early, honestly, even though we've had 9 named storms, possibly 10 tonight, with Josephine forming way out near Africa and dissipating in a day. We've got a long ways to go. The peak of the season is just coming into the calendar tomorrow with August 1st all the way through the end of October. So August, September, October, by far the 3 biggest months of the hurricane season. So this one might not be the big one to worry about, but it's a good trial run for what could be heading your way. I'll have the updated forecast track tonight at 11. If you can't tune in, I will tweet it, Facebook it, Instagram, and I will send it out. Remember, you can watch me online if you're not in our viewing area. I get a lot of people ask me if you want to see my forecast. It's available on our app. We stream every newscast on our app and on our website. If you go on there at 11 o'clock at night, you'll see live video on our website. You'll actually see a player with it playing up there. You can watch online from anywhere. You don't have to be in the viewing area. And if you're away from your TV, you can watch it as well. Most people consume things digitally, and that's why we're going to be here digitally as well. I will have an update at 11, and I hope to do a Facebook Live or a vlog tomorrow. I'm supposed to be on the lake tomorrow with the family, so it might be later in the day, or it might be first thing in the morning. So, but I plan on doing updates this weekend as well to make sure everybody's prepared for this storm, regardless of what happens with Isaias. Hope you have a great night and a great weekend, and hopefully you won't hear too much from me this weekend, because that means a good thing that nothing's going crazy.